Hi, and welcome to Preview. My name is Guy Giampapa. Preview.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, cue Guy.
Hello and welcome to Preview. My name is Guy Giampapa. On Your Feet, the big Broadway musical called On Your Feet, is not a jukebox musical. Instead, it's a big Broadway show about the life of Gloria and Emilio Estefan, the couple who met, married, and created some of the most exhilarating music the world has come to know and love. Together, this couple has sold over 100 million records, won 26 Grammy Awards, and has made their style of pop music a highlight in the world of music. This huge Broadway phenomenon recreates their life, their love, and the efforts to be recognized among the great artists in the world of pop. There were many ups and downs. The problem of Gloria's mother, who tried to destroy the relationship with her daughter, had with Emilio. The relationship with the Estefans had as Cuban Americans living in Florida. The audience whistled and cheered when the record executive refused to record one of their songs in English. An angry Emilio put him down and said he was an American and this was his home. Are you listening, Mr. President? The story becomes heartbreaking in the second act when Gloria is injured in a bus accident. Her recovery is painful, but she comes back triumphantly with a stunning performance at the American Music Awards. Her relationship with her mother ends happily, and we all sigh as the entire company makes magic with some of the best choreography created for the stage. While the entire cast deserves recognition for their work as dancers, singers, and onstage musicians, this is a love story for the ages. Truth is stranger than fiction, and the careers of the Estefans is truly amazing. Lucky Stiff. The Walpole Footlighters' latest production is a musical created by Lynn Ahrens and Stephen Flaherty. The plot is taken from a book written by Michael Butterworth, who called The Man Who Broke the Bank at Monte Carlo. This amusing production is called Lucky Stiff, and the Footlighters succeed in giving us a joyful evening. The story deals with the death of a rich man who leaves all his money to his nephew. The nephew is played by Francis Sheehan, and he must take the embalmed body of his uncle on a vacation to Monte Carlo. If he succeeds passing his uncle off as alive, he stands to inherit $6 million. However, if he fails, the money goes to the Universal Dog Home of Brooklyn. This is a rib-tickling show, and the large cast, 10 actors, play a variety of roles, all quite convincing and entertaining. The real star of this hilarious murder mystery must go to Ben Medeiros, who plays Uncle Tony Hendon. He's truly a stiff in a wheelchair throughout the entire production. The dialogue of the actors is smart and wisecracking and keeps the audience on its toes with laughter, while the body of Uncle Hendon remains stiff and upright. This was the first collaboration of Lynn Ahrens and Stephen Flaherty. This couple went on to write the music and lyrics for the very successful Ragtime that took Broadway by storm a few years ago. Since their first collaboration with Lucky Stiff, the popularity has soared, and the Footlighters have been clever enough to include Lucky Stiff in their repertoire. Well, now for the best part of our show, the interview with the actors. We're pleased today to have two actors from the wonderful show Allegiance, which is playing at the Speakeasy Stage Company. And not only that, but I have a co-host this time. It's Susan Mulford, who is, as I am, an Ernie member. She decided to come on the show, and both of us will talk to the actors about Allegiance. Welcome to the show, everybody. First of all, you, Susan.
Thank you very much.
You saw the show with me.
I did.
And give me your opinion.
Oh, my God. I'll just read a little bit
Sure,
from my
why not?
review.
Yeah.
First of all, I opened with the fact that the production is something that really, it's a true story and it needs to be heard. But my favorite line is that it's exquisitely wrapped up in a score that takes your breath away as it soars to stunning heights rarely achieved in a new musical. The cast was absolutely amazing. It's beautiful, and yeah, it just it really was. It's engaging. There's bits of humor, but it has a warmth and charm that just draws you into the story and into George Takei's, who was Mr. Sulu on Star Trek. His story, to present this issue of the 120,000 Japanese Americans that were incarcerated for 3 years in a concentration camp environment because of the attack on Pearl Harbor and the Japanese involvement in the war.
Wow, that's a good review. That's comparable to the Scarborough Boys. It's a strong, powerful show that really tugs at you. Well, we have two wonderful actors who appeared on the show. First of all, Melissa, you play the nurse.
Yes.
You're the only American in the show. Everybody else is Japanese.
There's Ryan Martisich's character.
Oh, right.
He plays all the white guys.
Oh, okay.
He was the bad soldier.
He's the bad soldier.
Oh,
Yes.
that's true. I had
That's
forgotten
true.
that. And Michael, you have an important part in the show.
Right.
Tell me about that.
I play Mike Masaoka, who's the speaker for the Japanese American Citizens League. And he kind of serves as the antagonist in the show. He's kind of cast out as like a villain by a lot of the numbers in the show. But
Yeah. Knowing the history of the Japanese being interned like that, did any of that bother you, the way it was written, or looking back at it, at what happened in those days?
I think it's mixed. I think there's an interesting thing in that sometimes the camps, like George Takei will talk about how the camps, from his perspective, weren't that bad as a kid because it's all he knew.
Right.
And so he knew that this is just the way that life was. And so I think there are times where the musical really takes the worst of the camps and really highlights those,
Yeah.
whereas there are a lot of other times where the camps were not as insidious, I would say. They were still a horrible thing that it happened, but I think it was more about the injustice in theory rather than the actual practical day-to-day life of the
Right.
living in the camps.
Did George Takei was on site for some of the rehearsals, or you had an opportunity to meet him?
Yeah, he came to our opening
Yeah.
night.
Yeah, he was
Oh,
at
did
the
he?
opening night of the show. wasn't he? Yeah,
Wonderful,
yeah.
wonderful. And was he pleased?
He was.
He was. Because he
So
was
nice.
he was only 5 years old
Yeah.
when he was with his family swept from their homes.
Well, he had some memories of it too. He appeared on Greater Boston, and he told Jim Braudy about some of the experiences as a child during that time. To me, that really tugged at me when I heard that. As I said to you before we were taping the show, I remember I was a teenager when all that happened, and it really disturbed me because I thought, this can't be happening in America, but it did.
Your role as the nurse, it's interesting. We were discussing it. That initial response was, she's evil, because you just seem totally impassioned to their needs and issues. But as we see, there is a love interest in
Right.
this
Yes, there
develops
is.
in this story.
Which really surprised me because I thought you were evil.
Yeah.
And
Which
well,
is-
in the opening,
that's
you were
wonderful.
very stern.
Yeah.
Did someone ask for an aspirin, and you said that's for military use or something like
Yeah,
that?
well,
Yeah.
military
Yeah, and I
use
thought,
only.
gee,
Hannah is, she comes into the internment camp and she's very by the books.
Yeah.
She's very rules are rules. I do what I'm told. But then Sammy kind of tugs at her heartstrings a little bit. And I
Yeah.
think she sees, as a woman in the 1940s, she sees a lot of her own struggle in Sammy as she gets to know him and the Kimura family. And she realizes that sometimes rules have to be broken.
That's wonderful.
I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, just to see you transformed from evil to good, really.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too, from my perspective. I was thinking it becomes a leveling ground, the production, in terms of some of the antagonists of racial prejudice that unfortunately still exist in our society. But I tend to look around the audience also during a production because I'm often curious what their response is. And you could just see that people were being drawn into the cause, engaged in the passion, and especially the sweet scene between Grandpa and the daughter, that the common ground is not that Japanese Americans, or whatever. The common ground is families and love
Yes.
that binds
Yeah.
the human race. And I think that the production demonstrates that beautifully.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I was taken in by the older man in the show, and I wondered, because he might have been a child when all this happened. I wondered what he thought about it as he's performing in this. Any feelings? Was anything said about that?
It's the person playing Grandpa?
Yes, yeah.
OG-chan.
Yeah, Gary's actually not that old. He was actually, I believe, born in the 60s.
Oh, it's makeup?
Yeah, it's makeup.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's
Ah,
aged.
the
Really?
magic
Yes.
of theater.
Magic,
Yeah,
he
she's
grays
aged
his hair.
significantly.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yep, he did. It was-
Actually, how old is he?
I want to say he's maybe in his 60s. Yeah.
Oh, that's not too old.
Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is. But when George Takei wrote this, did he actually write the show?
No, so actually it's a funny story. He met the composer and lyricist on a plane to New York.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong. Was it to New York?
And he was in the Heights. He was at
Well,
a performance of.
He met them on the
interesting.
plane, and then he ended up sitting next to them at In the Heights.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And they kind of got to talking, and George Takei, he told the composer and lyricist his whole story about the internment camps, and they said, this needs to be a musical. This is a story that needs to be told.
Oh wow!
And so they
interesting-
kind of teamed up.
Yeah, Jay Kuo's
That's amazing.
music
Yeah.
and the lyrics. Sometimes the music, well, that's nice, but the lyrics were so engaging that. Yeah, just plus the delivery of an amazing cast, and I know that we have a clip of you with Grace Yu.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Which is I
Yeah,
don't
Michael
know.
has a clip in the control room of you singing, Melissa.
Stronger
And
than before.
Stronger
Yeah.
than before. That's a
Okay,
wonderful.
I think we'd like to show that right now.
I am stronger than before, braver than before. I swear I'll stand beside you to even out the score. I don't know how to thank you. No thanks are needed, Kay. I do what I have to. I guess we're both that way. After all that's happened here, we cannot pretend that we are bound together. We will see this to the end, to the end. We are stronger, stronger than before. Whatever this may cost me doesn't matter anymore. We are women who move mountains in the middle of a war. We are stronger than before. And time will face what lies in store. Stronger than before.
Wow,
It is-
beautiful. I applaud
yeah,
you.
it has
you.
an
Beautifully
impact.
done.
I
I want to talk
music-
about your background. You were a graduate of the Boston Conservatory.
Yes.
And I've made it public that anybody who graduates from the Boston Conservatory is fantastic. I've known
Thank
a lot of
you.
actors that have come out of there, and it's I haven't met a bad one yet, and I don't think I ever will.
It was my dream school, the Boston Conservatory.
really?
Yes, and I'm so proud to be a graduate.
Oh, wonderful. What have you done besides Allegiance?
So I'm in the Donkey Show
Oh,
in
okay.
Cambridge.
Oh, really?
And I did a bunch of like performance art shows at Oberon.
Yeah.
I was just in Dirty Rotten Scoundrels at
Oh.
Boston Conservatory.
Oh, what fun.
I just had my senior showcase in New York.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes. Graduate? You just graduated?
I did last Saturday.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, this is an occasion.
Thank
So
you.
you just springboarded into the right role.
Yeah,
Right,
I feel
opportunity.
really lucky to be playing Hannah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
I think we're going to see more of you now now that you've graduated?
I hope so.
Yeah, well, I think we will. There's so many theaters in Boston now. The opportunities are so great. you know.
Yeah.
I hope you'll do more work for Speakeasy, because that to me is one of the best.
Oh, if they'll have me, absolutely.
Oh, I'm sure they will. Yeah. Yeah, Paul Daniel and that
Yeah.
entire crew is fantastic.
I saw the Scottsboro Boys twice last year.
Did you
I loved
really?
it so much, yeah.
Oh, wasn't it great?
Yeah. And it's great that they're doing important shows and
Yes,
shows with
yeah,
a
absolutely.
political message.
Right, it's-
I mean, especially in this day and age.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really proud to work for a theater that's talking about the hard things, you know.
Well, I only see good things for you in the future.
Thank you.
That's wonderful. Michael, you have a great background. You've been around for quite a while now. Tell us about
Just a
it.
couple of years, yeah. I graduated from BU in 2016 and have basically worked since. Been doing shows at the Lyric Stage and Wheelock Family Theater and now Speakeasy.
That's
Yeah.
nice.
What are some of the shows that you've been involved with?
Well, most recently I was in Hold These Truths at the Lyric, which was a solo show
Oh, yes, yeah.
Yes.
about Japanese internment, where I
Okay.
played another real-life Japanese American, Gordon Hirabayashi, who he challenged the internment order, and it took all the way up to the Supreme Court. And so I kind of told his whole 40-year journey
Wow.
of battling that as a
So
college
he
student.
was responsible for the remuneration, the $20,000.
Mike Masaoka, the character that I play in Allegiance, was responsible for
Oh,
that.
really?
But Gordon Hirabayashi was responsible for the Supreme Court case,
Really?
Hirabayashi versus the United States, which it was actually, he lost. He lost at the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court declared it constitutional to intern their own citizens.
When did that happen?
That was last December.
Really?
Really?
Yeah.
That's frightening. That is really
Oh,
frightening.
no, not the play.
Oh,
Was,
the
Oh,
play
no,
was
no,
last
no.
December.
I mean,
No.
Do you know, when did this happen in
Yeah.
real life?
I think he lost in 45.
Oh, it's time to go again.
So someone
It's been
eventually won. There were
won.
3
That's-
cases
okay.
that challenged it,
Yeah.
Okay.
and one of them was eventually overturned.
What was the reason for them denying it?
All the same kind of arguments that people make
Yeah.
about
It was too
defense and that it was
close.
justified, yeah.
It was too close. to
But one of the things that people will
the
point out
wound.
oftentimes is that it's insane that they would ask that Japanese Americans forswear their allegiance to the Japanese emperor, because it's not like German Americans were being asked to forswear their allegiance
Right,
to
yeah,
Hitler.
yeah.
There's no correlation whatsoever.
Yeah.
And so the fact that people have these arguments, they're easily refuted, but
It's crazy what people do when they act out of fear.
right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very
Some
much.
of the other plays, you've been involved with other theaters also, haven't you?
Yeah. And so I guess last year I was in Charlotte's Web at the Wheelock Family Theater. I played
really?
Wilbur.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Perfect pig.
I was a pig.
They do a wonderful job as well, though.
They do.
Oh, they do.
Yeah.
They really
They're
do.
great.
But
Yeah.
even their children's based productions can be excellent.
Yeah.
Beauty and the Beast was fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Melissa, we want to give Michael equal time. We showed some clips of you singing, but Michael, who's also in the show, has an important part, and we have a scene showing you, and I wonder if Mike has that. We could show that right now.
This is my chance, keep on playing along. I understand what makes a man. This is my time, our time. It's our time. It's our time.
That was great. Okay.
It's really good.
Okay, now you've both had equal time. So I can sleep tonight, right? Well,
Now I do remember now what.
Do you?
Because not only has wonderful musicality and has a historical basis, it's developed beautifully in terms of a storyline, and that scene where you're singing with Grace, yes. Yeah, she has just discovered that she's now pregnant,
Oh, yeah.
and you are in love with her brother. So there's just all these love connections and relationships, and it's not only just the physical attraction of love connections. It's the love between the family,
Yes.
the honor, and it's fascinating the way the plot it breaks into 3 segments in that. Some just sort of dutifully went along. Some, like the father, not the grandfather, but the father, refused to sign a document that the government had established to demonstrate allegiance, and was incarcerated for it.
Yeah.
And then the scene where the Grace is. She decides that she's going to stand up and fight the situation of being incarcerated. So, and supporting conscientious objectors within the group when all of a sudden the U.S. military decides to, well, maybe we will draft them. It's a very complex story, so it's engaging as well as entertaining, as well as an emotionally passionate story. It's very rich, very rich.
Do you think if this play lacked music, it would be as powerful as it is with music? What do you two think about that?
That's a hard question.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
I mean, music evokes something in you that words can't,
It's
right?
powerful.
And I don't think that Allegiance would be the same without
I think
music.
I agree with you. How do you think of it?
Yeah, I
Michael?
think it would be different. I think if it weren't a musical, it'd start to bridge more into history, which can sometimes
Yeah.
get a little muddled and a little
Or preachy.
more preachy.
Preachy.
Yeah.
I think that music softens sometimes something that needs, like I said, this is a production delivers a true story that needs to be heard. This does it in a very palatable way, and it draws you in and makes you feel passionate about the subject.
We talked about South Pacific earlier. You've got to be taught.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking the same thing. If there was no music involved in South Pacific, would it be a strong?
I don't think so.
I don't think
Yeah.
it
No,
would.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Because you get so much of the character's internal monologue through the song.
Yes.
Too.
Yeah.
And the musicality and the text painting. There's just something in the ether with music that you can't get from just speaking
It's
alone.
an emotion. It's a
Yeah.
very strong emotion,
Yeah.
isn't it?
That's
Yeah.
like the production Ragtime.
Oh yes,
You know,
absolutely.
You just the story builds and
Powerful.
builds, and and I always cry at the end.
Yeah.
I did shed tears. This one,
Well, on that note,
especially when you died. Not to spoiler alert.
we're running out of time. I'm sorry to say. On that note, I want to thank you, Melissa and Michael, for coming on the show. It's really been a pleasure to have
Thank you
both
for
of you
having
here.
Yeah,
us.
thanks for having us.
And I'm honored
wonderful.
that you came on our show
Yes.
because you're in a play that's remarkable.
gee,
And I think when Ernie comes around next year, you're going to hear more about this.
Oh yeah.
Congratulations to both of you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, that's our show for this time. My name is Guy Giampapa. Thanks. Oh, I want to thank my co-host, Susan Mulford, and I especially want to thank Jim Torres for bringing these people in today. Thanks very much.